Okay, welcome to everybody who's perhaps joining us online back to our Infrastructure Committee after the summer recess. You're all very welcome. We're just going to proceed through the agenda as follows, so I don't think there's any apologies. So we'll move on to declarations of interest. So remind members that they are obliged to declare any relevant financial or other interests which might reasonably be thought by others to influence their approach to the matter under consideration. Any members who have interest to declare in relation to today's business should do so now or when the particular matter arises in the meeting. So does any members have any declarations of interest they wish to declare?
Sure.
No? Okay. Item 3 is chairperson's business. So I just want to say that it is great to see the Grand Central Station now open to the public, and I know myself and Peter were down at a behind the scenes tour just before it opened to the public, and it was great to sort of see it in operation, hear from TransLink how it's going to increase capacity there, and indeed to see that there is businesses that are going to be there and will be opening soon. And of course we look forward to the rail links opening there soon as well. So it is brilliant. It's a flagship executive project, and we're very glad to see that it's in operation, and certainly as a committee we'll be hoping to see that there is improved and more public transport links for people as a result of that transport hub opening. So and we do just want to put on record as well our thanks to TransLink for inviting us down and having us there both behind the scenes and at the official opening as well. Okay, so item 4 is the draft minutes. Page 8, there's a draft minutes of proceedings for the meeting on the 26th of June 2024. I'm seeking agreement that members are content that the minutes are a true and accurate reflection of the meeting on the 26th of June. If so, I'll sign the minutes now.
Content, sure.
Content. Okay, thank you. Item 5 is matters arising. No matters arising from anyone? No? Okay. Okay, so we'll now move to item 6, which is the road safety oral evidence from the Motorcycle Action Group. At page 17 you'll see the clerk's memo, and at pages 20 and 25 you'll see the written evidence from Motorcycle Action Group. So we're welcoming Mr. Martin Boyd today to our committee. Good morning.
Myself.
No problem. He's a Northern Ireland representative for Motorcycle Action Group, and joining us remotely is Mr. Colin Brown, who is Director of Campaigns and Political Engagement from the Motorcycle Action Group. So I just want to check if Mr. Brown can hear us.
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Wake up, Colin.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just members seeking agreement that it is the evidence session today is recorded by Hansard. All content with that? Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just going to invite the representatives joining us today just to make an opening statement. We've received obviously your written evidence, and I think that there is a video that you want to play at the beginning, so I'll allow you to do that and just briefly introduce what you're going to discuss with us today as well.
I'm happy to wait to play the video a little later. I'll just get it ready.
Yeah.
I'd like to say good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting Motorcycle Action Group to address you. It has long been felt amongst motorcyclists nationwide that officialdom more or less ignores us, and that is the reason for existence of Motorcycle Action Group, is to basically keep us in your consciousness so that we don't get forgotten about, like we've been forgotten about in London by TFI, who don't seem to recognise that motorcycles exist when they do their modelling of traffic flows. However, Motorcycle Action Group, we're 51 years old now. Volunteer-led organisation advocating riders' rights. We're a civil rights organisation. Someone described it as a bit like a trade union for motorcyclists, and that's a fair simile. We're not a biker group as such, like, for example, Key Vipers or Veterans Riders. We're an overarching representative body. And I represent not just, well, primarily, of course, MAG members in Northern Ireland, but by extension, like a trade union, in a way, all motorcyclists, even if they're not members. I did send a document outlining our perspective on the business. If I may, I would like to, begin, if you would like, by highlighting to you something which, for motorcyclists, Northern Ireland is a class leader. Northern Ireland provides universal bus lane access for motorcyclists and has done since about 2005. That is, it may not seem like it, but that is a vital and extremely useful safety aid for motorcyclists. And it's also very useful in terms of journey time, traffic flow, cutting congestion, cutting emissions. Across in GB, as Colin can testify, it's very patchy as to whether motorcyclists are allowed to use bus lanes or not, and various spurious reasons for not allowing access have been given. I have provided groups across in GB with the DOE then, their risk assessment and all the documents that they produced, giving reasons for allowing motorcycle access, and groups over there are using Northern Ireland as an argument to counter the resistance of local councils and TfL, etc., to motorcycles and bus lanes. You may not realise it, but it is very much appreciated, and it does enhance motorcyclist safety, especially in heavy traffic. And indeed, my journey here this morning was partly facilitated by bus lane on the Newton Arch Road. It meant I wasn't stuck between a bus and a truck. And one other thing I observed this morning, which isn't on this, but it just was an observation, you actually provide a place in the car park for motorcycles to park, separate from the cars, therefore not taking up vital car parking spaces. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So many places don't. They just don't think about motorcycles. And that's part of the point that we're trying to make.
Okay, thank you. Colin, do you want to add anything to that before we play a video, or?
No. I say I'm here very much in a supporting role. Martin is the Northern Ireland rep. I represent MAG at a UK wide level. So I'm very much here to interject with any additional information. But yes, I would certainly echo what Martin has said about the bus lane situation. That is something that we are very grateful for, and is very helpful to us on the mainland in terms of persuading local authorities to take a consistent approach to motorcycle access in bus lanes. And I think that consistency and lack of confusion that exists in Northern Ireland it can only be a benefit for the safety of motorcyclists.
Thank you. Do you want to play the video now for us?
I can.
Yeah.
This little it's an extract of a piece from the Nolan Show, in which I, representing MAG, appeared on the very subject. Well, it's called Talking Potholes, and in this I do my best to get across the perspective of the motorcyclist with regard to the quality of road surfaces and how potholes can affect us.
In a motorbike, potholes are dangerous.
Sorry. Maybe if you want to, sorry, Martin, if you maybe want to pause that wee minute, we'll just check the cable maybe, just to make sure it's in. fully.
Roads, watch out. There's 120,000 potholes. Martin, you're a man of the roads. Are they really that?
With the percentage cuts that are being talked about, some of them don't cause much concern to a car.
A car or right?
Technology is wonderful when it works,
It'll always
isn't
let you
it?
down. I know I've
hitting
worked
the
with it for
pothole
many
there,
years.
Martin.
Sorry?
I think you keep hitting the pothole there. To be honest.
That's it.
Yeah. Right, there, mate. Want some water?
No, thanks.
Well, I can just give a dry talk if this isn't going to work. I've been engaging directly with Department for Infrastructure for many years on many aspects of road safety from a motorcycling perspective, this being one of them. And succinctly put, our perspective is if you make a road safe for a motorcycle or any two-wheeled vehicle, it will be safe for any vehicle, any road user. Unfortunately, I have to say, I really don't feel that ever that message has been received because there's been absolutely no evidence of them even thinking about it. And we accept that budget is constrained. We're not asking for more money to be found. What I have asked the DFI is to think about how they spend the money that they do spend on fixing the roads and perhaps be a bit more effective, think a bit more imaginatively, because it's great whenever they fill in the worst of the defects, but very often a number of the defects that are left behind are still hazardous to motorcyclists. And I can show you, hopefully show you an illustration of exactly that type of defect that has been left behind by the DFI, but which, well, it nearly had hazardous consequences for me. But they don't seem to get this message. You know, when they go along and fill in the worst potholes,
Potholes are dangerous.
I think they need to rethink their criteria. But I understand why they have the criteria, because they have to make the money go as far as possible. But I think a bit of imaginative thinking or a bit of lateral thinking. And also, there is a great feeling amongst motorcyclists, and I would agree with this, that we are a vulnerable road user group, recognised officially as such, and therefore we feel that there should be, for every vulnerable road user group, there should be a bit of extra recognition given to our safety needs. But that's not happening with DFI. You know, they're making the road smooth for bigger vehicles, and they're totally ignoring the defects that can still be quite hazardous to us. I have reported dozens and dozens and dozens of defects that are particularly hazardous to motorcyclists just in the area where I live. And there's still dozens and dozens more. And the ones that hopefully I'd like to have shown you on the video were very, very typical. You know, defects on bends of a nature that won't really cause you much trouble on your car, maybe give you a bit of a bumpy ride, but for a motorcyclist, really can be almost lethal. And I've engaged with them on that a lot, but I don't feel I've got anywhere.
Just want to check the video. Will we maybe send it to members?
Yeah.
With that?
So the adapter, was it? Yeah.
Wait.
It's not the laptop or the device. It's
Perfect.
connected to the board.
Well,
Okay.
I could turn my laptop around and play it if you wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the speakers
yeah.
up there. Well,
Better than nothing, perhaps.
yeah, it's big enough.
Right, I'll get it back to the beginning then.
Apologies about that.
Yes, I do apologise.
We'll get it circulated to members as well, just so that you have it too.
Yes, 'cause I have sent it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether you're in a car or riding a motorbike, potholes are dangerous. If you're driving on the local roads, watch out. There's 120,000 potholes waiting to be fixed. Martin, you're a man of the roads. Are they really that bad? The way things are going, with the percentage cuts that are being talked about, some of the defects that don't cause much concern to a car driver can be quite hazardous to two wheels. You know, the roads are only going to get worse. These are the ones that cause us most concern. Coming off that bend, it's almost right on the perfect safe line for a motorcycle. And any motorcyclist could hit that. That could throw someone off. And then quickly followed by another one. And then
So you get a double rump here.
quickly followed by more on the other side of the bend.
The roads are atrocious. Things don't look good as it is.
Since about 2014, we've been running what we call a limited service policy on essential maintenance. That's all the stuff like potholes, verges, gully emptying, signs, road markings, all that kind of stuff that's heavily safety focused. And essentially the policy requires us to only repair the most significant defects. So that's the deepest potholes or problems that are most likely to impact driver or pedestrian safety. We do it simply because we don't have the money to do more. Everybody can see that.
Notice
the
he
quality
didn't
of the
mention
road network isn't
motorcyclist
what it used to
safety.
be, because just like your house or your car, things that aren't repaired in time end up needing more repair and costing more. But if we don't invest in road maintenance, we can't expect the quality of the road network to get any better. The good news is that this isn't a particularly complicated problem. It's a challenge, but we know how to fix the roads. We have talented engineers and industrial workers in the department that know very well how to make the road a better road network. And Northern Ireland can have a better road network it's willing to pay for. And ultimately, we just need to decide what level of service we want from our roads.
Unfortunately, it looks like currently the hole in the budget is as big as the holes in the tarmac. Barton, there isn't any money. That's the problem. We appreciate that. We really do appreciate and understand that, which is why we keep saying when works are done that they prioritise making that piece of road safe for a motorcycle. Because if it's safe for a motorcycle, it's safe for every kind of vehicle.
Super, thank you very much. And that piece, I suppose, highlights, really importantly, the need to make sure that the roads, as you quite rightly have said, if it's right for a motorcyclist, it's going to be right for everybody that's on the road. Colin, I see your hands up. Do you want to come in there, and then we'll maybe come to members' questions if you're happy?
Yes, I was just going to mention something very briefly. There's some quite important research that has been done very recently. It's not fully published yet, so you may not have seen it or be aware of it. In England, there's a charity called DocBike. They've got a PhD researcher who's done some research into motorcycle casualties and the causes of that. And what was done was some eye tracking methodology that looked at the difference between eye tracking of motorcyclists and car drivers. And what the research shows is that motorcyclists spend a great deal more time scanning the road surface looking for defects than car drivers do. Now, obviously, that's because of the impacts. But what you also have to remember is that time spent scanning the road is time not scanning for other hazards, which means that it may not be a direct impact of the pothole itself, but the fact that we've got to be looking out for the pothole actually has a safety impact in itself. So it's one of these things that, I guess, we can look at the direct impact of hitting a pothole, but there are other factors that need to be considered. And I think that's quite an important piece of research, because as motorcyclists, we kind of recognise and understand that, but somebody who doesn't ride the motorcycle probably that wouldn't be a natural conclusion that they would arrive at. So I think that's an important piece of information to add to the to this presentation this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see some of the detail of that research as well. And I suppose you make a very important point, you know, in relation to people scanning the road for defects, because that's what was going through my head whenever I was watching that piece. Just, you know, could be quite hard at times to see, you know, it might be marked out on the road, but what if it's not marked out? And there's all those things like that. Yeah.
There's, if you can see it, there's an example that I literally came across on my motorcycle outside Donaghadee, and this was on a rising left-hand bend. That's not marked for being fixed, because it doesn't really cause much of a bother to a four-wheel vehicle, which would just straddle it. But it's right on the nice line for the bend, the safe line for a motorcycle. Imagine hitting that at 40 or 50 miles per hour. You know. Well,
I think we'll come to members' questions at this stage, if you're happy enough. So, I just wanted to kick off. Just you may have already mentioned this, but just to check how many people you represent from Motorcycle Action Group in terms of Northern Ireland.
Members in Northern Ireland, the last time I checked, there was 180 something, I think. Now that doesn't seem like an awful lot, and in a way it's not, but not everyone joins organisations and clubs and societies. But
yeah,
nationwide, UK-wide, there's over 60,000 members of Motorcycle Action Group, and we constitute the largest of the motorcyclist representative organisations, which we cooperate with, you know.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, through the committee, we've been looking at the road safety strategy and the draft road safety strategy as well. And I'm not sure if you heard the evidence session at the time, but we did ask to see if there was input from the likes of Motorcycle Action Group into that road safety strategy. What do you feel was the level of engagement and input between your group and the department into that road safety strategy?
We submitted a comprehensive submission to the road safety strategy, and I have submitted to you a copy of that. And not a single item of it was incorporated in the draft strategy. Nothing of it, not a thing, which is intensely disappointing, because I'd spent a lot of time engaging with the DFI on remote stakeholder engagement meetings, and actually I have a log of all the engagement that I have had with the DFI, which is reasonably extensive, but not a single item of what we suggested was incorporated, or even not even any kind of hint that we will do those things in time. Nothing. Just completely ignored. And even the first copy of the draft strategy that was published did not have a single photograph of a motorcyclist, yet it's supposed to be road safety for all road users.
Yeah.
You know, we do feel that as a group that we are pretty much not ignored. That implies a deliberate action, but overlooked. Now, I mean, how many of you sitting around here ride a motorcycle or have ever ridden a motorcycle? Exactly my point. Most people don't, and you don't have a perspective on what it's like for motorcyclists, but that's part of what we're here for, to try to help you understand that, and that we need certain other ways of being thought about, as do cyclists.
And so obviously that submission is what you would like to see contained,
yes,
letter by letter, in terms of the road
yes,
safety strategy, and obviously you've communicated that to them,
yes,
after it's being published and everything, even in the draft form as well.
Yep.
In terms of, obviously there was the Think Bike campaign, which I've noted was referenced in the written submissions that a Motorcycle Action Group provided to the committee, and you've said that has plateaued in terms of the effectiveness. What do you think could be done to improve the effectiveness of or revisit that campaign, coinciding with the likes of the road safety strategy?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't actually have a comprehensive answer. I think what would be needed is a complete rethink of how the message is portrayed and put across. That's going to cost money, and I know budgets are limited. Also, I mean, the effectiveness of that Think Bike campaign, I believe it has plateaued because, as I do say, you know, still today, 50% of the most serious and fatal road traffic collisions involving motorcyclists are at least the technical fault of the other road user, mainly car drivers. Having said that, I must balance things up. The other 50% of the most serious collisions involving motorcyclists are the fault of the motorcyclist. That's actually a separate issue. But it's been that way for some years, and that's why I feel that the effectiveness of that awareness campaign has plateaued. There's nothing more to be gained from it. I don't have an answer, but I think we need, and we're very happy to engage in that thought process, think of another way to tackle this awareness.
Sorry, Colin, before I bring you in, just do you think that should be the police, you know, who should be bringing forward? Police, DFI, everybody,
all agencies
road
involved,
safety partnership?
even Department of Justice, Department for Communities, the PSNI agree with me. I've had a meeting with the head of roads policing. He agrees with me on this. He also agrees with me, and he would also like to see the introduction in Northern Ireland of an enhanced rider scheme, which I mentioned in my submission, which is available in Great Britain. And it's a scheme that is aimed squarely at post-test riders who have just passed their test, or riders who've been riding for some years and maybe done no training, or coming back to riding after a break. And it builds upon the basic skills that they learnt in order to pass the test and enhances their skills. And it leads to a more confident, a more skillful and a safer rider. And a rider like that is safer not just for themselves, but also for the road environment generally. Any vehicle operator who is more skilled, aware and safe is safe for everyone. You know, part of what it teaches is enhanced awareness of hazards and avoidance tactics. So, you know, you may see a car driver about to emerge, and rather than just say to yourself, well, I have right of way, and ride into the hazard, you take avoiding action. Even give up right of way if necessary. But it means neither I am hurt or killed, and neither is the car driver hurt or killed. Safer all around, and that's part of because there's 50% of the most serious collisions are the fault of the rider, and mostly down to riding outside their skills envelope or lack of awareness. That's why I feel we need this, and we used to have it in Northern Ireland. Shortly after I passed my motorcycle test in the early 80s, I was directed to a scheme called Star Rider, and I still proudly wear the badge. It was a progressive scheme, and it was delivered by ROSPA and funded by the then DOE, and it was squarely for new riders or older riders returning to motorcycling, and it built upon the basic skills that a rider needed to pass the test. And it was a brilliant scheme. It really was. I still used daily the skills that I learnt on that scheme. And then the funding was cut and the scheme died. But that's exactly what we need to have. And my son, he's a motorcyclist. He rides for Blood Bike Scotland. He lives near Edinburgh. And in his postal code area, there are 12 providers of the enhanced riding scheme. He's an advanced rider anyway, but should he or need it, he's got a choice of 12 providers for the enhanced rider scheme in GB. There's nothing here. Virtually.
Thank you. Colin, I'm just going to bring you in because I see your hand up there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think obviously the question you asked about how MAG's submission to the consultation on the road safety strategy and the outcome of that and the engagement, I think what Martin has said there is reflective. And again, don't take this as being a Northern Ireland problem only. I can assure you it's not any different on the mainland. But I think most riders get the impression that their safety is considered of a lower order than other road users. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that's an accurate perception, but we have to accept that that is the perception amongst many riders.
Yeah.
And I think the way that, like I say, when a riders group comes forward with suggestions and ideas, and that appears to be entirely blanked, that effectively sends a message back to the riding community. The difficulty that, I mean, it may be that there's no tangible thing that you can put into the road safety strategy, but unfortunately that then means that communication lines when it comes to safety messaging actually get closed down because the riders don't believe that the people putting out the messaging have their interests at heart, and it is therefore builds up a natural resistance to it. So I think this is one area where, simply showing that the Department for Infrastructure has the interest of the motorcyclist at heart, even if there's not a tangible, solution that is provided, actually mentioning it is of vital importance so that riders do feel included and don't feel like they're being ostracized and treated as a problem as opposed to a road user group that needs support.
If I could just say, part of our submission to the road safety review strategy was this document, our organisation's manifesto, how we see road safety can be improved. And I did provide this in the email document, so if you want to have a read at it, please do. And it's our idea of how the motorcyclist's perspective on road safety can be incorporated into everything, and to the detriment of no one. Just like making a road surface safe for a motorcycle is to the detriment of no other road user, that could be worth a read. Unfortunately, I didn't have any printed copies to bring with me.
No, don't worry, because it is
got
contained
that, yeah.
within our packs that
Yes.
we received in advance of today's meeting, so members will have had a chance to take a read at it. I'm just going to come to other members who've indicated that they wish to ask questions, so I'm going to come to the Deputy Chairperson first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Martin and Colin, for making the time for us today.
Well, thanks again for listening to us.
No, that's not a problem. And I think we all know that there's a massive motorcycle fraternity in Northern Ireland. You only have to travel to the North Coast any Saturday or Sunday afternoon to see the bigs congregating.
83,500 motorcycle licence holders in Northern
It's a
Ireland.
significant chunk, and we've a proud motorcycling history here. And regardless of the membership you have, I think it's clear to everyone here today that you represent the interests of everyone who owns a bike, and no one can disagree with that. I mean, the chair's already made the point about the road safety awareness campaign, the Think Bike campaign, and I'd be interested to think, hear from your point of view whether that's something you think that should be promoted further in terms of more advertising on TV to highlight, just the dangers that go with and the threats that motorcycles face. Also, I think it would be remiss of us not to acknowledge that many of the issues motorcyclists face are the same issues that cyclists face. And we have got rising cyclists on our roads who, if they hit the same potholes that you're referring to, that might not have an impact to myself as a four-wheel driver, could potentially kill a cyclist and without kill a motorcyclist. And so I think that needs, and has done as well, so I think that needs factored in. And the other bit I wanted to come to was, I know we had a bit of correspondence about this, it's reforming the wire crash barriers on motorways.
Yes, that was another.
And the danger that, again, it impacts four-wheel drive, but impacts, I don't know in East Antrim that we had a bit of success getting that done, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
That's another issue where actually Northern Ireland led the way in motorcyclist safety, along with universal bus lane access. If you've ever driven on roads like the A1 or the A8, you hopefully will have noticed the central reservation crash barrier is composed of steel posts which are about knee height, with steel cables stretched between them. Now they are designed, if a vehicle, a blowout for example, and veers towards the central reservation, it'll hit that barrier, and that barrier will expand, and the posts will pop out of the ground and expand, The idea being to retain that vehicle on its own side of the carriageway rather than into oncoming traffic. And they work very well for cars, vans, trucks, buses, but not for motorcycles. They are absolutely lethal for motorcyclists, because what happens is the motorcycle would get tripped over the steel cable because there's not enough inertia when a motorcycle hits it to trigger the designed action, or the motorcycle gets trapped underneath the cable and slides down the centre reservation, and the rider hitting the steel posts and causing enormous damage. It's caused great damage to some riders in parts of the world, and it's caused deaths. It's caused 2 deaths in Scotland over a long period of years, to be fair, but it still has. So our point was, this is a safety feature that's not safe for motorcyclists. It's not safe for a vulnerable road user group. The DFI, for many, many, many years, kept saying this safety system complies with international standards, and they quoted an international standard. And sure, and I got tired of the same response, so I actually looked into the safety standard. And sure enough, it does comply to that safety standard. But that safety standard did not require testing against motorcyclist impacts. So therefore, it was not safe for all road users, which the DFI kept saying. And the minister at the time, Nicola Mallon, I have to say, we had an online face-to-face meeting, and she was very good. She took on board everything that we said, and work in the background went on, and Northern Ireland then proposed to the entire UK road safety people that the procurement rules be changed so that from the 1st of January 2021, no new road schemes that would require that kind of barrier, or road extension schemes that would require one of those, they wouldn't be allowed to be used. They'd have to be, the preferred alternative is what are called concrete cushions. You'd see them on the M1, for example. And yes, I was asked directly, would I rather hit concrete than steel cable? And very definitely, I'd rather hit concrete if I had to. So from that date, no new road schemes that are being funded from that date will be allowed to use that kind of barrier, and those that do exist will be phased out when they come to the end of their economic life. So it's not a rip them out and replace them solution, which most motorcyclists wanted to see. That's just not viable. But it's the beginning of the end to a safety feature that wasn't safe for everyone. And Northern Ireland led that. It was work that I did, and work, to be fair, that was done by DFI officials that led to this being changed UK-wide.
Sure. Just to return back then as well to the raising that awareness campaign. We've talked here about the need to have more adverts on TV and on social media. I'm just wondering how much of an impact you think that could have in drawing people's awareness to thinking about motorcyclists on the road, and also for motorcyclists themselves to continue to raise the awareness in their minds about need for safety, yes, particularly on rural roads as well, Martin.
Yeah, I mean, motorcyclists do need to be reminded of their vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. And other less vulnerable road users need to be reminded of our vulnerabilities. But we have responsibility for ourselves also. Mm-hmm. I just read recently that online has overtaken television, for example, in how people get their news. Mm-hmm. So I think perhaps a robust, imaginative online campaign could be more effective than TV, and probably a lot cheaper. But I think what needs to happen is a rethink of how that message is delivered. Mm. I'm not a media specialist, so I don't have that answer. But we are happy to be involved in trying to arrive at that answer. But it will mean spending money. Yeah. It can't be done on the cheap if lives are valued. And another part of the reason why we're really committed to all of this is that in recent years, road safety seems to be getting wrapped up with sustainable travel. And we have an argument that motorcycles are part of the answer for sustainable travel. Motorcycles are an efficient, effective means of personal transport We use a lot less fossil fuel. We create my average motorcycle will create about 5 or 6 times less emissions than the average car, for example. A study was done in Holland and they hypothesized that if there was a 10% shift from single drivers using their car to using two-wheel transport, even little scooters, that there could be a 30-odd% drop in congestion and emissions. So we have an argument that we can be part of the answer for sustainable transport. Sustainable transport doesn't have to be just buses, bicycles and trains and your feet. That's a whole other issue, but that's part of why we're committed to raising our profile in terms of road safety in general. We don't want things changed just to suit us. We really believe that if some of these changes were made, it would be beneficial for all road users.
I just see Colin is looking to come in there as well.
Yes, I was just going to quickly respond on the Think Bike campaign and messaging in general. Our perspective on it, and this is part of what we were trying to get across in the Welcome Roads approach to road safety, as opposed to the more Vision Zero approach. We focus very strongly on personal responsibility. So things like the recent change to the highway code, we actually resisted it. Now, it may seem strange that we were resisting something that said that the user of a larger, heavier vehicle should take more responsibility for the safety of the vulnerable road user. But our argument is that the fundamental messaging we've been giving to riders throughout history is that they need to take full responsibility for their own safety. And if everybody had that attitude on the road, not only for their own safety, but for the safety of others, then we're going to get to the solution that we need. So I think when it comes to messaging, we need to be very careful how it is presented. Very often we'll see perfectly legitimate messaging about certain behaviours when you're on the road. But because they get targeted at specifically motorcyclists, then motorcyclists will react to that by saying, well, why are you picking on me and not giving this message to the other road users? And again, whether or not that's entirely a legitimate position or perception, it is the perception that is held. So what we tend to push for when it comes to talking about the behaviours on the road, take out the transport class from that discussion. So if you're talking about speeding, that message applies to anybody, no matter what vehicle they're using. It doesn't need to be directed at motorcyclists. If you're talking about a specific skill that is specific to motorcycling, then yes, clearly that needs to be directed at a motorcyclist. But if you're talking about general road behaviours when it comes to safety, don't single out one user group and give that message to them. Even if you're giving the same message to the other group on a separate message, I would say don't do that. Just use the same message for all road users. So it is about, again, making motorcyclists feel that they are included and that their interests are taken into account. It doesn't mean that every motorcyclist is a Boy Scout who doesn't need to be taught anything about road safety. It just means that we don't want to do it in a way that it makes them feel like they're being picked on, as opposed to embraced and supported.
Thank you. You happy enough?
Yeah, just to agree, Martin, with yourself and those points Colin made, and that we do need to be imaginative in terms of that promotion and raising awareness. We have a lot of successful and famous motorcyclists here in Northern Ireland. We had one here on Monday, and they're renowned around the world for their success, and maybe we could use them to promote that message and to raise awareness and do something.
That's interesting, but I would stop to consider because Michael Dunlop is a motorcycle racer. He's not a road motorcyclist. In fact, Joey Dunlop did not have his motorcycle license to ride on the road until shortly before he got married. So motorcycle racing is quite different to motorcycling on the road.
I suppose they do use the motorcycles on the road, though, don't they?
Yes,
Themselves
and
day to day.
actually, you remind me of something. You know, the notion that making a road surface safe for motorcycles makes it safe for all road users is actually a policy the DFI use when they're maintaining the roads that comprise the Northwest 200 road racing circuit. That's exactly the policy that they use. So why not apply that to all roads?
Okay. Thanks, John.
Okay, we do have a number of people. I don't want to curtail the discussion, and I want to make sure that we come to everybody who has indicated as well, because it is an important topic that we're discussing today. So if you don't mind, if we could keep questions and answers succinct, and I'm going to come to Stephen next.
Okay, thank you, and thanks, Martin.
Ian,
Colin,
good to see you again.
Good to see you again, indeed. And we share many of the same roads and go over the same potholes, and certainly recognise a few from your video there as well. So I think just to say on that, the comment, you know, that the intervention level is an important issue. It's currently 50mm. It used to be 20mm, and that's something that we are lobbying the Minister regularly on. And I was just keen to explore what impact you think restoring it back to 20mm, you know, would have on motorcyclists.
At least 50mm. It's too much.
Yeah,
It's really too much.
Yeah, I
I
think-
understand why they've done that, because their budget's limited, but it's too much.
yeah, I think it's a critical issue, and we're having some success locally in resurfacing, but the work certainly continues. And it's a valid point that motorcyclists, if it's fit for cyclists and motorcyclists, you know, car
Absolutely
users
right,
as
yeah.
well. But no, just to commend you on your work and ensuring the voice of motorcyclists is heard. The other thing, just to touch upon the enhanced rider scheme, and obviously the PSNI have their Bike Safe programme, and I know
Bike Safe's brilliant.
we had a meeting on that with you about a year ago.
Yeah, but, yep.
But just keen to explore, you know, the differences between that, the enhanced rider scheme as it operates in GB, and then the Bike Safe programme.
Enhanced rider scheme, a bit like advanced motorcycling or advanced driving, is a training course. It's a progressive training course. Bike Safe is an awareness course. It's very good. Motorcycle Action Group helped to set up Police Bike Safe UK wide many years ago at the beginning, and we fully support Bike Safe. It's brilliant. Funny thing, many years ago, whenever it was free, there weren't many motorcyclists using it. Now that they have to pay £65, the sessions are all booked out.
Yeah.
So there you go. But no, it was revamped a number of years ago, and it's very good, very worthwhile. I encourage every rider to do it. I've done it twice. It's great. It's very, very good.
You think the PSNI are doing enough
Yes,
in terms of...
and the PSNI really, truly would not have the resources to do anything more than Bike Safe. But Bike Safe could be the gateway to an enhanced rider scheme. Someone does Bike Safe, and they get their assessment from the police rider, and they're brilliant. The guys they're really, really good, and they give up their time voluntarily to run those weekends, and you know they're not paid. They're doing it on their time off. It's brilliant. It could be the gateway, and then when you've done that and you get an assessment from the Bike Safe, then that assessment is taken to a training provider, and they then take you through. In England, I mean, I did mention one of my documents in Derbyshire. They implemented this in the mid 2000s, and over a period of 4 years, they halved their rate of serious and fatal collisions involving motorcycles.
Yeah.
Halved it, and it's subsidised by over there by local councils and from central government. And the rider pays something, maybe pays something like £60 for 6 lessons or something. Riders should pay; it should not be free. And I have actually provided the DFI with an idea, a model, if you like, of how it could be funded, because it will cost money, and we never ever once expected the DFI to cough up all the money for it. But they are a key player in this idea.
Yeah.
PSNI are fully behind it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Thanks, Martin. Just again to commend your work and that central reservation issue that John talked about. I know we're involved with that as well, and that is a sign that people are listening and you are making a difference. So
I have to
keep it
give
up.
credit to those officials that once it was realised that, oops, this doesn't actually meet all the safety standards required, they went to work and got a resolution. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Super,
Chair.
thank you. Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Martin, and thank you, Colin, as well. I should say, although I said I don't ride a motorcycle, I've never been on one. My dad is a user, So if he's watching, I'm going to be on my best behaviour with you now. I just wanted to know, you'd mentioned I think it was 83,000 licences in Northern Ireland. Do you know how many active motorcycle users there are each day? Estimate?
We did a survey a couple of years ago, and I had the online survey open for a month, and we got about 500 or so responses from active motorcyclists, and worked out that about 40% of those motorcyclists ride every day, and about 30% would be commuters. I used to commute for 20 years. I commuted up and down to Belfast all year round in all weathers, and still about 30% of motorcyclists would do that. But about 40% of them would be on the road every day, and some of them, of course, it's their job. Motorcycle instructors, motorcycle couriers. So I don't know the exact number. 83,000 licence holders, but that doesn't mean that they're all active motorcyclists.
Of course. Then secondly, on the video clip that you shared with us there, Colin Woods was speaking as a DFI official, and Colin's been into this committee as well to address us. And he mentioned about the policy being about prioritisation of potholes, but in that same video you mentioned about we need to think imaginatively or creatively. Do you have any sort of examples from other best practice around the world in terms of maybe a difficult budget, but ways in which we could approach potholes more creatively?
I don't specifically, actually, although Colin may be able to give more on this. There is one or two, as you know, in GB, local councils are responsible for local roads. There are one or two councils that have started using a machine that can very quickly, very effectively and cost effectively repair a lot of potholes in a day. Something like that. A couple of those machines could make a huge difference, for example.
Sorry, Martin, I see Colin's looking in there. He might be wanting to talk about that, particularly with it being in GB.
Obviously, you've asked for good examples internationally. To be honest, it's difficult to come up with international examples of good best practice on this. But we are working very closely with National Highways at the moment, where we're actually looking into. It's not so much about the actual technicalities of filling in the potholes. That, as Martin mentioned, there's the new technological approaches in terms of new machinery and the JCB Pothole Pro machine, which greatly reduces the amount of time that is required to do the repairs. So those are all great things. But what we're trying to focus on with National Highways is actually the understanding and the training of the people who go out to assess the potholes. I mean, you obviously touched on, the number of how deep the pothole is almost not a relevant question from a motorcyclist's perspective, because it's more to do with where the pothole is positioned as opposed to how deep it is. So a very shallow pothole in the wrong place is going to be more dangerous than a deep pothole in an area of the road that doesn't normally get traversed by a motorcycle. So it is about the understanding of the inspectors who go out and do the risk assessments to decide which potholes it is, and simply sticking a tape measure in and seeing how deep it is isn't really sufficient from our perspective. So that is what we're working towards with National Highways over here on the mainland. But again, there's potential for us to look at possibly creating a training course for the inspectors, and then actually monitoring whether or not that has an impact. I mean, it's all well and good saying that these things are going to change things, but you also need to measure the results. So I'd be very interested in whether we could use Northern Ireland as a test bed for something like that, for a training course for the inspectors, to see whether that actually changes the decisions that they make, and then the outcomes in terms of the motorcycle casualties.
Northern Ireland could lead the way in that as well. Sir, Peter, I don't have an exact figure for the number of motorcyclists on the roads in Northern Ireland, but I do remember that nationally in the UK, motorcycles account for about 3%, maybe 3.25% of road traffic, and that's about the same proportionally in Northern Ireland, and that is virtually the same as HGVs. So think of how many HGVs there are, and that's more or less the number of motorcyclists that there could be on the roads in Northern Ireland.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cahill?
Thanks, Chair. You're very welcome. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I appreciate we've spent a lot of time talking about potholes and road conditions, but I mean, if you look at the road stats and the deaths and the tragedies, I mean, it's inattention and driver behaviour in a lot of cases.
Yes, inattentive drivers.
Yeah, I want to come back to the and I know a lot of questions have been asked, but I mean, if I was asking you about your key asks, I mean, you talked about enhanced driver schemes. Colin, has that been costed, or is there a model out there that we can, because we're all strapped for budgets and we're asking for more monies, and the question for us as a committee is, if there's a suggestion there and we could support it, we need to bring some kind of evidence to the table in terms of what we would support, because we're going through the road safety strategy at the minute. If that's something that will help, all road users 100%, and that's the kind of thing.
There's a scheme in existence in GB and has been for a number of years. So, what it costs could be a model. I have provided to the DFI an idea framework of how it could be funded. So I mean, the enhanced rider scheme in GB could be used as a model, and I'm sure from central government you get what the costing breakdown. My understanding is that central government provides some subsidy for it, and road safety departments and local authorities provide some subsidy, and then the rider also pays.
No, I only asked in the context of, because you have a number of key asks within your paper that you presented already, and we probably as a committee would support any of those that's going to lead to less road deaths and less, serious injuries in particular. And I know that we lobby every day. We're lobbying on potholes, and there's not a day that goes by that we're all trying to get more funding for that. But for this specific piece of work, I just want to know about that. And the other one is the CBT training. Yes. Would you like to comment more on that and how that can be?
Yeah, I just have a little note here about that. We believe that the swerve, a swerve exercise should be introduced to the CBT, making it more realistic, using a training area that is marked out like a road rather than using cones, which is not realistic. And I've been through this when my wife was doing her CBT, and it's not realistic. CBT has been of benefit. The avoidance swerve manoeuvre and the emergency stop we believe should be firmly put into context with junctions, i.e. marked out like real roads rather than with cones. We believe that would enhance rider training and awareness, because they're doing it and they're seeing the same kind of layout that they will when they go on the road, rather than marked out with cones.
Just a final question, thanks Chair, the issue of driver education and maybe getting into schools. I mean, in terms of your work, you'd like to comment on that?
Well, there are schemes that do road safety awareness in schools, and the fire service do a very good scheme where they go in and they illustrate the dangers of speeding and road crashes and so on, but none of them incorporate specifically awareness about motorcycles, and I'd like to see that being done, because think of secondary schools. You've got school students there who in 4th, 5th and 6th form, so I still use the old I don't know about year 14 or anything, but they're of that age where they're going to be beginning to start to learn to drive, and many, like I did at that age, many of them get their first taste of first independence on 2 wheels, be it a little scooter or a small motorcycle. Some of them will learn to drive and get their own car, and young road user awareness is very, very important, but it needs to also include motorcycles.
I just see Colin wants to come in there, Colin, before I have two other members just looking to ask questions as well.
Yeah, just very quickly, if I may. Obviously, you touched on CBTs and such like. Motorcycle license reform is one of the major issues that we are campaigning on at Westminster. We are a little bit wary about saying what the outcome should be in terms of what changes we specifically want, because it's a very complex subject. But one of the key drivers that we think of any change should be an increase in the conversion rate from CBT rider to fully licensed rider. At the minute, UK-wide, approximately 5 CBTs are issued for one rider to actually achieve a full license. So that means that if you look at the average age for achieving a full motorcycle license in the UK, it is 24. The average age for achieving a driving license for a car is 17. So, there's a big problem there. It doesn't mean that we haven't got younger people riding motorcycles. It just means that we've got younger people riding motorcycles who haven't been fully trained up to a test standard. So, what we're looking at is how we actually encourage the throughput from CBT to full license holder. And that is an area that potentially, as the in Northern Ireland, you could look at specifically is that incentive, how you actually generate the incentive to get to fully licensed. That doesn't actually require changes to the legislation in terms of the licensing, but I just thought that'd be worth throwing in there.
Super, thank you very much. Keith, I'm going to come to you next.
Okay, I just have the one question, Martin, hopefully, and it may lead on to others, I just don't know. And thanks, Colin, as well. My question is relating to causation factors. So you talked earlier about other road users and then possibly motorcycle users. So if you were to look at the causation factors here in Northern Ireland or the rest of the United Kingdom, what would you say is number one to whatever number? And if you had a pot of money to go to one of the causation factors, which one would it go to? Because you have talked about training, you have talked about potholes, and you have talked about other road users. But where is let's call it one pot of money in simple language, where would that go to get the biggest impact?
Yeah, good question. Challenging question. My instinct would say that pot of money should be used to set up an enhanced rider scheme. Because I feel the awareness, the Think Bike type awareness scheme has plateaued with regard to car drivers, because most of the serious and fatal collisions involving motorcyclists are at junctions, car pulling out, driver hasn't seen motorcyclist, or car pulling across motorcyclist to cross the road. I don't think, in a number of those cases, Colin will agree, we as motorcyclists recognise that there were or could have been things that the rider could have done to avoid or mitigate the resulting collision. Not that it was the rider's fault, but if I saw this car at a junction and thought it might be pulling out, rather than just keep going, there are actions I could take to avoid or mitigate what may or does happen. And we feel that that's not always the case with some riders in those situations. And that's why I think when you look at the other 50% of the most serious collisions, they are the rider's fault. And of that 50%, about half of them are due to inattention or riding carelessly, or riding beyond their skills. And that's why I think if we could set up an enhanced rider scheme, that over time it will benefit overall road safety, not just for motorcyclists, but even if I hit a car at a junction, well, I'm the one that's going to come off worst. I recently actually had to explain to a car driver why we are a vulnerable road user group, and it's simply because in your car, you're not, on my motorbike, I'm more vulnerable in a collision than you are in your car. But if I hit your car, I'm the one who's going to come off worst, whether it's your fault or my fault. But you could also be hurt. My family would be affected, your family affected. But if that collision can be avoided, well then, happy days all around. even if that means I have to take avoiding action, even give up right away. And I certainly feel that's not something that's in the psyche of every motorcyclist, and I think it should be.
And just a quick supplementary final
Yeah.
point. What country in the world or EU is getting it right?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Colin, I just see your hand up there before I come to Mark.
Yeah, and again, very very quickly in terms of which country in the world I think is getting it right, I don't think there is one. Is the blunt answer. But with the causation factors, and which would be the single one, it is very difficult, because what we often find is that the causation factors are not necessarily as comprehensive as they could be. So when it comes to recorded casualties, there is a list of causation factors that the police will but we think that there are other causation factors that need to be considered. So yeah, again, it's one of those things that obviously I don't ride in Northern Ireland personally, so I bow to Martin for his experience. But one thing, GB wise, is that we have noticed that there is a significant correlation between stolen motorcycles and casualties. For example, last year in London, out of 21 motorcyclist fatalities, 5 of them were linked to stolen motorcycles. That never gets mentioned in causation factors, and directly in causation, it may well be that that's not a factor. But if you remove the theft of the motorcycle, then you've removed that rider from the situation where they end up as a casualty figure. So yeah, there's some strange answers that may come out that are unexpected if we broaden the remit, shall we say, of how we record causation.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, gents, for coming. If maybe not with full pre-cooked, ready meal solutions, certainly the ingredients and suggestions as to what could be done better. See, in terms of the 83,000 licence holders, and I know you don't know how many of them are everyday users in that, but do we know what the fluctuation in that number is like, or has been like? And sure, the DVA could provide us with figures around renewals, new applications.
I don't, unfortunately, I don't.
And I don't know, with the motorcycling community, I'm not proposing this, but in terms of funding an enhanced riding scheme or something, if the cost of licence was to increase slightly to cover part of the cost of that, is that so motorcyclists could see where their money was going, essentially, rather than the price or cost going up just for the crack, which always happens.
Well, I would suggest
that they could swallow,
since motorcyclists are a designated vulnerable road user group, and that therefore there is an incumbence upon authorities to address their safety needs a bit more closely.
Yeah.
That, you know, helping to provide further training would be a duty.
Yeah.
The motorcyclist should not get it free. And my idea of how it could be funded that I submitted to DFI, you know, I suggested insurance companies could be approached to make a contribution. Department for Justice, Department for Communities, the PSNI can contribute, not in terms of money, but their bike safe scheme could be the gateway to this enhanced rider scheme. If you want to do enhanced rider scheme, you must do bike safe, and one fee could get you through bike safe and then your enhanced rider scheme. But the rider must pay. When I did mine in the early 80s, then I, as a young lad, I paid something like £25 for 6 weeks, 6 Saturday lessons. And for me back then, 25 quid was a reasonable chunk out of my pocket.
It was acceptable in the 80s.
But yeah, I mean, it was an investment. It was an investment in myself. You're not going to get every motorcyclist taking it up.
Yeah.
Because like car drivers, there's a core who just won't, no matter what, even if you give it to them free. There's a core of, I actually met a rider recently, and we were talking about bike safe, and he refused, he wouldn't do it. I don't need to. I've been riding long enough. I don't need any more training. that's a fatal statement. But if it's available, then there's no reason why a rider couldn't take it up and enhance their skills, improve themselves, help improve road safety in general. It will take years, it will take time, but I honestly think it's something that should be invested in.
Sorry, Mark, I just see Colin, he might want to come in on this point.
I actually think that you ask a very interesting question. To be fair, it's a difficult one for me to answer. Obviously, as a spokesperson for a representative body, for me to sort of like say yes, increase the cost of training is going to be problematic. But I think, I mean, as Martin touched on before, if you make training free, people see that the value of the training is less. So if there is a charge attached to it, people will place more value in it. Motorcyclists do place value in their own safety. So I don't think that this is something that you can say, dismiss the looking into, how these things are funded and where the money comes from. I think the motorcyclists will naturally be prepared to make a payment. They'll never make a payment happily, obviously, if you can get something for free. But again, when you look at the motorcycle licensing, one of the biggest complaints is the cost of it. But I wouldn't say that that's because people are objecting to paying the cost to make themselves safer. It's just that it is seen as there's no value placed in terms of the amount of extra safety you get by being a fully licensed rider. So I think that is an area where we've got to sell it to make people understand why the costs are there. And then you've got to look at the comparative cost between getting a driving license for a car and a motorcycle license, because you don't want the cost to be a drag factor that pulls people away from motorcycling into driving a car, for all the obvious reasons in terms of congestion and emissions. So it's certainly an area that is worth exploring, but we would need to be careful how we sell it, shall we say, to the riding public.
Okay. There are 4 tests required for someone to achieve a motorcycle license. Did you know that? There's only 2 to achieve a car driving license, and it also generally costs more to achieve a motorcycle license.
Okay, and finally,
that was a very interesting question. Brilliant.
Part of our roads safety strategy, and we will be coming to it later in this morning's proceedings, we're updating the highway code. Now, I know that's been done in other jurisdictions already, and I don't know if we're just doing like a karaoke version of it here or cut and paste. But do you see any opportunity there for improvements or amendments to be made to the highway code that would actually improve safety
we
for
would.
motorcyclists?
Colin could actually enlighten you more on that, because when there was a consultation in GB about proposals to change the highway code, MAG made a comprehensive submission on each of the proposals. I'm not fully over all of those, but I know that we did. It would be good if it wasn't just a cut and paste in Northern Ireland, but then you also have to think of standardisation. But I think, Colin could answer you better on that one.
I think we did make a number of suggestions when it came to the consultation on the highway code here in GB. I have to be careful, because I think the top priority has to be consistency. So I don't think that you'd want to come up with a highway code for Northern Ireland that is significantly different to the one in the rest of GB. I don't think that would be to anybody's benefit. And whilst there were things that we didn't approve of in terms of the GB highway code amendments, I wouldn't want to necessarily see, an opposite approach taken in Northern Ireland. So I think consistency of approach is the first key, but there would be additional things that we could put in terms of slightly tweaking what's already gone into the GB version to make it more relevant from a motorcycling perspective. And again, it is about increasing the awareness of other road users for what impacts some of these changes to the highway code will have on a motorcyclist, and taking that into account.
Consistency, or being as close to uniformity, is very important. And I'm sorry, let's just give rise to
one quick point, Mark,
question.
please.
Given where we are in the north of Ireland and we've a land border with the south, are the rules and regulations and standards uniform or close to it in both those jurisdictions? Because there'll be a lot of people obviously traversing.
I actually can't answer that. I don't know, but I imagine that they are fairly close. And I see your point. There could be a validity in some harmonisation between how we have a highway code and the Republic of Ireland. I wouldn't object to that, but that's actually something I should look into. You've highlighted something that I'm ignorant on that, so
me too.
Worth looking into.
Super. Look, we really enjoyed the evidence session today, which is evidence of the fact that we've run over time. But,
yes, I realise that.
But look, we just want to thank you for both coming to our committee today, for Colin joining remotely, and I'm so glad that the technology did work to allow us to hear from you virtually, and yourself, Martin, for coming along as well. We do appreciate it because it does help our understanding and our scrutiny of the road safety strategy. And certainly when the Minister and officials are back in, will allow us to question more in relation to some of the aspects that you've raised today. So we really do appreciate it, and we've heard you loud and clear. So thank you so much for your evidence session today.
I hope I gave a good account of MAG, and hope I acquitted myself well. And thank you everyone for listening to me and for some super questions. And yes, I get a positive feeling that we have been listened to, and our perspective has been taken into account, for which I'm very grateful.
Excellent.
By the way, I only have one, but that's a copy of our National Members Magazine. If anybody wants to have a read, it gives you a good taste of what the organisation's about. You're very welcome to one. And we are open, truly open to being contacted with any questions, queries. We want to help as best as we possibly can.
Well, thank you, because no doubt through the course of the committee there will be open calls for evidence, and certainly we like to try and engage with groups, so certainly as time progresses there will be that opportunity again, no doubt. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
Get out of your way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, I think there's a few things just to follow up on there from the evidence session. And as you say, we'll be coming to some of the road safety stuff as well. I shouldn't say stuff, road safety document later in the course of the committee meeting. Just looking back here at some of the things that were raised. I thought it was interesting about the training course for inspectors of roads, and that aspect that he was talking about in relation to just not how deep the potholes are, but actually where they are positioned on the road, which I thought was an interesting point, because we can often focus on the fact that it's a deep pothole, and certainly the public can focus on that, but it's actually where they're positioned. So it might be useful maybe to ask some questions just in relation to, is that factored in the positioning of where a pothole is on the road as comparison to just the fact that it's the measurement of the pothole?
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else members wanted to raise at this moment in time?
Just maybe share something on the enhanced driving scheme stuff, if there's a model, or we can get some research done or something to see what to do elsewhere. I mean, if that's
in terms of the costs,
yeah,
as well.
I mean that's one of the major asks in the CBT training and all, is some of the major things that they're bringing to the table in terms of what they want to offer in terms of the road safety strategy. So if we have more information on it, I mean, maybe there's a model out there that works that.
I'd agree with that, Chair. I think it'd be worth asking the department too in the PSNI just to respond to the not accusation, but the feedback potentially that they were overlooked in terms of their response, which they said was pretty thorough, but they didn't feel was reflected at all in the road safety plan. That's pretty concerning if that's the case.
And I would actually take it a step further, but I would actually ask the department to do a comparison nearly for us in terms of what do they think was included in the road safety strategy in comparison to the submission from the motorcycle group. And you know, to be fair, Martin did say that they had quite an awful lot of engagement, and he has a log of that. So it just seems strange that they feel that nothing was included in that strategy as well, Mark.
And just maybe if we could seek from the department an analysis over a number of years. I suppose it sounds really cold because we're talking about statistics here, but if we think 3% maybe of road users are motorcyclists, what percentage are we seeing in the fatality figures over the last 10 years, say? How many of them are motorcyclists? And I'd say you'd be for 10%.
And that should reflect, because a motorcycler or a pedestrian or a cycle user is no safety to the degree at all, so it should reflect in their thought.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, are members content with that? Happy enough as well, yeah. Okay, members, if you're happy enough, I'm just going to try and rattle through the last. Do you want to come in again?
We have to nip out for about 10 or 15
That's
minutes
okay,
at
yeah.
some stage, just during
Okay. Okay, I'm going to rattle through. Thankfully, I have my voice back from the last time. So we're going to go through some of the SRs and the SL1s as well. So item 7 is SR 2024-134 Lurgan Road, Portadown Stop and Up Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 55, you'll see the statutory rule. At page 62, the Examiner of Statutory Rules, 21st report of the session 2023-2024. The rule is subject to negative resolution. I'm informing members that the purpose of the statutory rule is to stop up Lurgan Road, Portadown at 2 locations. The committee agreed at its meeting on the 12th of June that it was content with the proposal for the statutory rule. There have been no change to the policy content of the SR since the SL1 was considered by the committee. I'm informing members that the Examiner of Statutory Rules had no comment to make on the technical aspects of the statutory rule. So are members content with the statutory rule? Okay, so I'm reading the motion that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2024-134, the Lurgan Road, Portadown Stop and Up Order, Northern Ireland 2024, and has no objection to the rule. Okay, thank you. So item 8 is SR 2024-135, Kingsley and Warren Point Stop and Up Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 72, you'll see the Clerk's memo. At page 74, you'll see the statutory rule. And at pages 81 to 90, you will see correspondence relating to the order. The rule is subject to negative resolution. So I'm just informing members that the purpose of the statutory rule is to stop up Kingsley and Warren Point at a line commencing 62 metres north-east of its junction with Church Street, and at a line commencing 3.5 metres north-east of its junction with Church Street. I'm reminding members that in view of the number of objections to the proposed rule, the committee received an oral briefing from DFI officials on the 22nd of May. In response to the committee's subsequent request for further information, the department confirmed that it had requested the stopping up order in the interest of pedestrian and road safety. The committee was also advised that none of the objections for which addresses were available were from residents or businesses, property owners on Kings Lane. Having considered the additional information provided by the department, the committee agreed that at its meeting on the 12th of June that it was content with the proposal for the statutory rule. There has been no change to the policy content of the SR since the SL1 was considered by the committee. And I'm just informing members that the Examiner of Statutory Rule had no comment to make on the technical aspects of the statutory rule. You'll also see that there are 3 items of correspondence raising concerns regarding the proposal and how the objections were managed and addressed, and they are included in the meeting pack. The Department's observations document is a page 83 in the meeting pack, which states that it is satisfied appropriate processes have been followed and issues raised have been fully addressed. So just in relation to those correspondence which are from members of the public, I'm seeking agreement that we just forward the correspondence to the Department for comment on the concerns raised, if you're happy with that. Okay. And are members content with the statutory rule?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just read the motion that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2024-135, the Kings Lane Warren Point Stop and Up Order, Northern Ireland 2024, and has no objection to the rule. Okay, item 9 is SR 2024-144, the U8133 unnamed road of Ferrari Road, Newton Hamilton, Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 92 is the statutory rule. At page 100, observations of the Department upon the objection made to the proposal, order and not withdrawn. The rule is subject to negative resolution. I'm just informing members that the purpose of the statutory rule is to abandon an area of 5,020 square metres of the U8133 unnamed road of Ferrari Road, Newton Hamilton, commencing at its junction with the U8132 unnamed road and extending for a distance of 704 metres in a northeasterly direction, after completion of such works as the Department considers necessary to provide alternative facilities. One objection was received in response to the statutory consultation on the proposal for the rule. The Department's response and rationale for proceeding with the rule are outlined in the observations document, beginning at page 100 in the meeting pack. I remind members that the committee agreed that it was content with the proposal for the statutory rule at its meeting on the 12th of June. There has been no change to the policy content of the SR since the SL1 was considered by the committee. And I'm also informing members that the examiner of statutory rules had no comments to make on the technical aspects of the statutory rule. So are members content with the statutory rule?
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion is that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2024-144, the U8133 unnamed road of Ferrari Road, Newton Hamilton, Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2024, and has no objection to the rule. Thank you. So item 10 is SR 2024-145, the footway between Peters Hill and Clifton Street, Belfast, Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 104, you'll see the statutory rule. The rule is subject to negative resolution. I'm informing members that the purpose of the statutory rule is to abandon two areas on the western side of the West Link, Belfast, comprising of 726.805 square metres of footway extending north for 270 metres from Peters Hill and 79.053 square metres of footway extending 30 metres from Regent Street to Clifton Street. The areas of footway will be abandoned as they are no longer necessary. I remind members that the committee agreed that it was content with the proposal for the statutory rule at its meeting on the 12th of June. There has been no change to the policy content of the SR since the SL1 was considered by the committee. And I'm informing members that the examiner of statutory rules had no comments to make on the technical aspects of the statutory rule. So are members content with the statutory rule?
Yeah.
So the motion is that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2024-145, the footway between Peters Hill and Clifton Street, Belfast, Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2024, and has no objection to the rule. Okay, so item 11 is SL1, the Armagh Road, Moy Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 113, you'll see the SL1 proposal for a statutory rule. The rule is subject to negative resolution. The rule will abandon an area of 2,583 square metres of superseded road adjacent to the Armagh Road, Moy, from a point of 99.5 metres southeast of the junction of the Old Bog Road and Armagh Road, extending for a length of 212 metres in a southeasterly direction. The proposal has been requested by a solicitor acting on behalf of a client to facilitate the purchase of the superseded road and other adjacent land. The area of land to be abandoned is owned by the department, and following the abandonment the land will be declared surplus and disposed of in accordance with the statutory procedures laid down for the disposal of government owned land. Are members content with the proposal for the statutory rule? Yeah. Okay, the item 12 is the SL1 Moy Rafferty Centre, Craigavon, Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 117 you'll see the SL1 proposal for a statutory rule. The rule is subject to negative resolution. The proposal of the rule is to abandon an area of 452 square metres of road to the rear of number 87 Larkfield Meadows, Moy Rafferty, Craigavon. The proposal has been requested by an estate agent who is the owner of the bed and soil of the area to be abandoned to facilitate a planning application for the construction of dwellings and garages. Following the abandonment, the area will revert back to the owners of the bed and soil so that the construction of the dwellings and garages can proceed. Are members content with the proposal for the statutory rule?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The item 13 is the SL1, the Planning and General Development Procedure Amendment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. At page 123 you'll see the Clerk's memo. At page 125 you'll see the SL1 proposal for a statutory rule, and at page 129 you'll see DFI response to the public consultation on planning application validation checks. Excuse me. The rule is subject to negative resolution. The purpose of the rule is to provide local councils with a statutory power to prepare and publish planning application checklists that will be required to accompany different types of planning applications. A number of matters for consideration are set out in the Clerk's memo at page 124 of the meeting pack. Are members content to forward the list of issues that are there to the department for response? And I just want to suggest that the committee also just get some clarity on whether the checklist will apply to all forms of planning applications, for example, single dwellings, amendments to existing buildings, housing developments, business commercial applications, and also if the guidance on the development of the checklist matters for inclusion on the checklist will be provided to ensure a level of consistency across councils. Do members have anything else that they wish to add or happy with that? Mark?
Yeah, there was one thing jumped out at me, sorry, Chair, if you bear with me. And it's great to see this sort of progress and councils doing this, but then you wonder, well, what about DFI? And we've heard from like energy companies and so forth about major applications and where there have been shortcomings, I suppose, in how they're being considered by and processed by the department. But like for the department to introduce a similar measure, apparently they're saying it would require changes to primary legislation, and therefore in the interests of expediency and in the absence of an appropriate legislative bill to advance such a change, this provision has now been removed from these proposals. So we're saying you councils can do it, but the department doesn't have to. So if we could ask the department what you're doing about these changes to primary legislation, and when are you bringing them forward?
Yeah, fair enough. Anybody else have anything else they want to add?
Oh, sure.
Okay, content then. So just asking members, subject obviously to that information, are you content with the proposal for the statutory rule, or do you want to defer decision until those additional pieces of information have been received? Two options there.
I think the information you were requiring, Chair, probably would be required prior to us approving this. Mine might not be as essential for that.
Well, then, do you just want to defer decision until we have all that information? Yeah?
I'm happy to second that if you're
okay.
passionate.
Yeah, so
Chair, could we maybe ask that we get a response really quickly and we could maybe decide at the next meeting on this?
Well, yeah.
Rather
well,
than in a couple of months' time or something
Yeah.
like that, do you know?
Yeah, we'll be asking for the information as soon as possible. But
Out there. The request's out there, so.
obviously, look,
Yeah, I
it's
know you
important that we
requested
see
for it.
it's important that we see these checklists come into
that's fair
play.
enough.
But we obviously need to make sure that everything is right, and that's our scrutiny role as a committee as well. So, so members happy with the proposal that we defer the decision until additional information has been received. Okay, thank you. And I suppose it is in the department's interest to try and get that information to us, considering that obviously it is a statutory rule for us to make a decision upon. So, item 14 is subordinate legislation. SR is not subject to assembly procedure. So there are 8 statutory rules that are not subject to assembly proceedings and are not required to be laid. These are listed at pages 142 to 190 of the meeting pack, and I'm just going to read them out as follows. So SR 2024-142, the parking and waiting restrictions Bangor Order, Northern Ireland 2024. SR 2024-143, the waiting restrictions Clockgate Order, Northern Ireland 2024. SR 2024-148, the parking places on roads, waiting restrictions and motor hackney carriages Belfast Bylaws Amendment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. SR 2024-149, the buses lanes Belfast City Centre Amendment Order, Northern Ireland 2024. SR 2024-150, road races Armagh Motorcycle Road Race Order, Northern Ireland 2024. SR 2024-151, the road races Garn Point Hill Climb Order, Northern Ireland 2024. SR 2024-154, the road races Ulster Rally Order, Northern Ireland 2024, and the SR 2024-158, the road races Bushwhacker Rally Order, Northern Ireland 2024. So I'm asking members, are you content to note the statutory rules? Okay, 15 is subordinate legislation, SL1 not subject to assembly procedure, and advise members that there are 6 proposals SL1 for statutory rules that are not subject to assembly proceedings and are not required to be laid. These are listed from pages 192 to 216 and are the parking waiting restrictions Newton Ards Order, Northern Ireland 2024. The parking places disabled persons vehicles Amendment number 2 Order, Northern Ireland 2024. The parking places disabled persons vehicles Amendment number 3 Order, Northern Ireland 2024. The roads speed limit number 4 Order, Northern Ireland 2024. The Cycle Routes Amendment Order, Northern Ireland 2024, and the Waiting Restrictions Order Northern Ireland 2024. I'm asking members if they have any issues they wish to raise on the proposals. So I'm asking members, are they content with the proposals for the statutory rules? Content? Okay, item 16, you'll see the written evidence budget 2024-2025, interim 2024-2025 budget, EQIA consultation report, and the final opening budget decisions written paper at page 218, Department for Infrastructure covering letter, 12th of August 2024. At page 220, you'll see the budget 2024-2025 Equality Impact Assessment, interim consultation report. Advise members that the covering letter to the interim report states that the Minister has confirmed that there are no changes to the indicative opening allocations, which are now confirmed as final opening budget decisions. However, the interim report states that any further responses received by the 6th of September will be used to inform in-year processes or if any mitigation measures might be required. So I'm seeking agreement to ask that the Department clarify the anticipated publication of the final consultation report and to request a copy of this prior to its publication. Members content with that? I also want to just let members know that the committee staff have been advised that a separate budget information gathering process was undertaken by the Department of Finance over the summer. So I would like to seek agreement to request that the committee is provided with a copy of DFI's submission to the Department of Finance in respect of that exercise, because that will certainly help us in looking at some of the budget pressures and decisions that have had to be made. Are members content with that?
Yes.
Okay. And yes.
Just one question. On the bottom of that letter from the Minister on the 12th of August, it indicates that additional money in the June monitoring. That letter is dated obviously 12th of August. Have we indication where that additional money is going?
Yeah, we can ask for that. I don't think we do have any indications.
It said the Minister considering allocation of these funds, but bear in mind that's the 12th of August, so
yeah.
We're now...
Yeah, and it's also just as well to remind members that DFI officials will provide oral evidence on the Department's October monitoring position in October, and members might want to take the opportunity as well just to consider some of that and explore obviously some of the wider budgetary issues during that briefing, and included anything that comes out as a result of the interim or final EQIA, or in response to obviously the summer information gathering exercise. But the budget position is not good, so it means we have to be on our game as well in terms of scrutinising every level and aspect of it. So members content with that, or anybody have anything else that they wish to raise? Okay. Item 17 is the changes to eligibility for the Northern Ireland Concessionary Fares Scheme. Summary of responses to the consultation written paper. At page 246, the Department for Infrastructure covering letter, 12th of August, and at page 251, the summary report, Northern Ireland Concessionary Fares consultation. I'm advising members that the Department has helpfully set out the emerging issues identified by respondents to the consultation. However, the Minister is still yet to make any final decisions. So I'm just asking members, are they content to note the response to the consultation, or if they wish to submit any comments to the Minister in advance of any final decisions being made, or if any further information is needed for clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, just a wee small point, and it goes back to my time when I was in Belfast City Council. I remember raising about concessionary fares for West Belfast taxis and that of the Greater Shankill as well, just to see if they could be included in the concessionary fares scheme. So if we could maybe get an update of the officials, because a number of meetings have been taking place over the years with our MP of West Belfast, Paul Maskey. So I'm just wondering, could this be incorporated into it, just for an update to see where that could be at as well?
On the taxi.
On the black taxis being able to have concessionary fares being put in.
Okay. We can seek some clarity just really.
No number of meetings happened in the recent maybe weeks or if not months as well. A recent meeting took place.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, so you're happy to note the correspondence just at this moment in time.
Okay.
And obviously as well, the budget session, we can also keep that in mind as well. Sorry, Mark.
I just chair that noted that if required, officials will be happy to brief the committee to discuss the contents of the report. That might be.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
We should maybe take them up on that offer if there are different.
Well, they're coming in anyway,
yeah.
So you know, it'll be an opportunity to question on these issues. So, so maybe is it worth just? I suppose we need to get information because the Minister may be making a decision prior to, obviously, so we'll need to get that before officials come in, if that makes sense. Okay, happy with that? Okay, now, where am I now? At page 260. Committee for Finance proposed financial provisions bill. I'm just letting members, making members aware that the Committee for Finance has provided details of the matters that are expected to to be included in the forthcoming financial provisions bill, which includes the Smart Pass fees. There's no indicative date as yet for the introduction of the bill, so I'm asking members if they're content to note, or if they want any information clarified, happy to note. Okay. Item 18 is the Road Safety Strategy for Northern Ireland 2030 Progress Report 2023-2024 written paper. At page 265 is the draft Road Safety Strategy for Northern Ireland 2030 Progress Report. At pages 289 and 305 correspondence in relation to the Road Safety Strategy. So I'm asking members to note the report and the items of correspondence. I advise members that a copy of the Road Safety Strategy 2024-2025 Action Plan was issued to members by email yesterday for information. In advance of the publication tomorrow, members are reminded that the action plan is embargoed until 2 p.m. Keith?
Yeah, I just want to go and share on that response from the DOJ, from the Minister, where it says here, the committee may wish to note the Northern Ireland Road Safety Partnership has in the past 3 years returned 2.2 million to the Department of Finance. So why then are we paying with no funding for road safety advertisements? Now, am I taking this from a different pot? But why are we returning £2.2 million? And if you look then on page 297, you'll see the response indicating, I think it is 297, if you bear with me 2 seconds. Yeah, it is 297. So in 2022-23 there was zero spent.
Yeah.
23-24, 301,000. Bearing in mind back the previous 26-2017, 1.3 million. But then we're returning 2 million. So why are we returning money? I presume the Northern Ireland Road Safety Partnership, that's part of their role. Because I looked on their website last night, it indicates road safety, education, all that. It's not only the vans, which is 11 of them bringing in a generation income, but it'd be good to understand where their income's generated from, what all departments feed into them, how much they generate. But why are they returning money whenever we can't spend anything on road safety? And maybe there's a genuine reason for it all, but it doesn't add up.
Are you coming in on that point,
Yeah,
Peter?
on that point, I mean, I remember this taking place. It was because there was no assembly. So the Permanent Secretary was faced with a difficult budgetary situation. So Dennis had to make that decision, and they didn't really want to. The thing that I took from that graph was, though, over the last number of years, we've spent over £1 million, and it's continually decreased. So we had that zero when there was no assembly. We're back to 300,000, I think it was. I mean, I would be keen to see that increased, if possible. But from my understanding, it was the Permanent Secretary that made that decision for zero.
But it wasn't a fair point, but that's not a controversial decision to make. You know, spend the money on road safety or return it.
Is that something?
It's not a JR one, is it?
I'm always very conscious not to have letters going off for letters' sake either. And we are going to have officials that are going to be coming in relation to some of the budget. I'm just wondering, is that a point that we could note for whenever they come in?
Or who are is that going to be Northern Ireland Road Safety Partnership again or not?
Well, we're going to have departmental officials in terms of the budget. They're going to be coming in relation to October monitoring round, but obviously we're going to hopefully discuss some of the wider budgetary issues as well.
But it'd be good in advance of that just to get a paragraph or two of what Northern Ireland Road Safety Partnership, where they get their simple paragraph or two, broad terms income from, and revenue streams.
Sure, just we have a response because the committee had also written to the Road Safety Partnership and the PSNI as well. So we do have correspondence that just came back on Monday, so it hasn't been included in the pack, and it was too detailed to table really, which will be in next. It might, I can forward it on to you in the meantime. It might deal with some of the queries that you're raising.
So do you want to maybe hold on that till we?
If there's enough information in that, we could maybe pull it together.
Well, you can have a look and see, and if there's more that you want to ask for, then we can certainly do that.
And hold that thought. We've kept a note of it, obviously here as well. Because I noted that point as well. I have to say, because I did think that's a bit strange that we're handing money back, which, whenever we had committee evidence, it would have been vitally important for some of the aspects. So, but perhaps we might look at that next week when that's tabled in the pack as well, and then we can make a decision on whether we need to get that beforehand. But
and just another point, if I may, I noted last night as well, in 2004, The mobile speed cameras at 6,915 detections, and the 2023 that's 67,000. So I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do, but that's a massive revenue stream there. But I'd be interested to know what all that does then.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Anybody else? Peter, yeah?
On that point, Keith, because I remember raising the point about double yellow lines and making sure that we were investigating who was parking on double yellow lines, and raised that with officials, and was told that money just goes back into the block grant. It doesn't actually go to DFI as per the legislation. So the point you just made there about that's a revenue stream, out of curiosity, does anyone know if that just goes back into the block grant, or does that money go to
that speed detecting vans?
Yeah.
I don't know, and that's why I would like to know what it takes to run that organisation.
So, as I said, there's going to be more detail on the road safety partnership. That'll probably be in our packs next week, in terms of all of that as well. So we can take another look at that next week. Okay, happy with that? Yeah. Okay, item 19. Now, in your packs, you'll see we're going to come to the All Island Strategic Rail Review in a moment, so just hold those thoughts for a second. But first of all, the review of the South East Flooding Autumn 2023 written paper, at page 307, you'll see the Department for Infrastructure cover letter, 29th of July 2024. At page 310, you'll see the review of South East Flooding Autumn 2023 extract. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's just to sort of pass remark that the review was widely welcomed by constituents, business owners, politicians, political reps across the board, but unfortunately it was somewhat lacking on the brevity of its interim measures, if that makes sense. I've asked the department about interim measures, and they haven't been very forthcoming, other than to say that they've actually just pushed the interim measures are enhanced flood resilience groups, which is essentially the general public. They're already established, but there's no real physical interim measures, which is of a grave concern to the people of Downpatrick, especially given that we are 6 weeks off, nearly being 2 years, and coming into the rainy season, if you will, or potentially a rainy season. So it does say in the report that the officers are providing an oral briefing. It'd be really good to take them up on that, but just again also to convey, if it's possible from this committee, just that the report generally says it rained an awful lot, and I'm afraid people at Downpatrick and Newcastle and Newry and Portadown knows that it rained an awful lot, but they want to see ways in which it might stop the flooding anyway. Chair, thank you for indulging me.
Absolutely, and I think members of the committee will agree on getting that oral evidence session on the report in the forward work programme. Members content with that approach from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's worthwhile saying as well, in terms of, remember in the committee, we looked at the flooding forecasting, and the budget is also playing havoc with some of that as well. And I remember we did think about the fact that the report was going to be coming out as well, and potentially was going to be looking at that forward flood forecasting.
It's very much in the interim measures that is lacking, and that is the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it says there's interim measures. We were told there'd be interim measures. You ask about the interim measures, there's no interim measures. That is the issue. I'm afraid that really is of concern to the residents and across the district, and in the Portadown as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so members are content with that oral evidence. Thank you, Andrew, for raising that, and we'll get that included in the forward work programme. I'm asking members that they're content to note the report in the meantime. Yeah. Okay, so item 20 is All Island Strategic Rail Review Final Report June 2024 written paper, which ruined my holidays. At page 319, the Minister for Infrastructure letter dated the 30th of July 2024, All Island Strategic Rail Review, and at page 323, the All Island Strategic Rail Review report extract. I joke I'm obviously glad to see the All Island Strategic Rail Review coming forward, and indeed it's a very important document in terms of infrastructure provision. Of course, I'm disappointed, and I know the Minister referenced that in his letter. I'm deeply disappointed that Fermanagh is not included. I think if we're trying to be ambitious about infrastructure and trying to create better transport networks across Northern Ireland, it's important that we have the rail links there and that are in place too. You know, it's obviously a programme of work that's going to be decades down the line, but I do think it's important that we do include every county. So therefore, I'm just seeking agreement that we get an oral evidence session on the report in the forward programme, because it would even be good just to get an understanding of what will the timelines be attached to all of this? Where are we going first? And you know, it's brilliant to see the likes of Bishop's plans to get rail routes connecting to our airports, which I think is really, really important. It'll be really great to see that. So are members content with that?
I think so, Chair, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and you're content to note the report in the meantime then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for indulging me on being a bit parish pump there in my own area.
A wee bit of parochiality. We're sure that you away with that, Chair. You've got the bypass and all up there, which we'll look for real.
Item 21 is the deregulation of approved technograph centre fees, outcome of public consultation written paper at page 340, the Department for Infrastructure letter 17th of July 2024, deregulation of approved technograph centre fees. I'm seeking agreement to note the correspondence and to request further detail on the comparative costs of equivalent fees in other jurisdictions and the Department's assessment of any anticipated increase in fees. Okay. Okay, so item 22 is changing the exhaust emissions test for light vehicles with a modern diesel engine. Public consultation written paper at page 344, Department for Infrastructure covering letter 18th of July 2024. At page 348 is a consultation on changing tests for light vehicles with a modern diesel engine. I'm asking members to note the correspondence and to receive detail on the options proposed prior to the Minister's decisions upon the completion of the consultation. Content? Okay. Item 23 is amendment to Northern Ireland law for people who return to Northern Ireland with an EEA driving licence. Targeted consultation written paper at page 357 is the Department for Infrastructure covering letter 17th of July 2024. At page 360, the consultation on amendment to Northern Ireland law for people who return to Northern Ireland with an EEA driving licence. And I'm asking members to note the correspondence and receive detail on the options proposed prior to the Minister's decisions upon the completion of the consultation.
Great.
Okay, at page 24 you'll see the strategic plan. At page 365, Committee for Infrastructure Draft Strategic Plan 2024 to 2027. And for members that following on from the strategic planning meeting on the 17th of April, committee staff have prepared a draft of the key issues highlighted by members. The draft was provided to members before the summer recess, and members were asked to consider the issues contained within it and to reflect on the matters that the committee wishes to prioritise during this mandate. So I'm seeking members' views on the areas identified in the draft strategic plan. And just before we do, can I suggest that road safety strategy is included just as an additional priority issue if members are content with that? I think, you know, there's huge public interest in road safety, and as a committee we're all very, very aware of the numbers on our roads who have sadly died. So has any members any other views on the draft strategic plan? It's a fairly comprehensive document, and I just want to thank the committee staff for their work in putting it together, and also for the input that members had during our strategic planning day, because it will be the roadmap, pardon the pun, for the committee going forward as well. So there's lots in it, and really we want to see delivery on it. And just be mindful, obviously we do have the Minister will be coming up to the committee soon, so it might be an idea just to keep that refreshed in your head, so that we are targeting our questions to the Minister in light of what is contained within that strategic plan, so that we make the most out of our session. Obviously we don't want to keep the Minister for forever and a day, but it is important we make the most use of our committee sessions. Okay, so I'm asking that members are content to approve the draft strategic plan subject to the inclusion of road safety.
Yes, Chair, I was just going to echo what you said as well, just thanks to the staff. I think it's a really good document. Obviously, this committee covers such a broad range of issues, it is almost impossible at times to try and factor it all into the strategic document, but it's been done perfectly in this, and it's also given us that bandwidth as well to deal with the legislative agenda that's going to be coming forward, which will be significant as well. So, yeah, I think it's spot on with the addition that you've already highlighted.
Staff enjoyed every moment of it. Sure, we know.
Sorry?
It was a good bonding day. Like the staff enjoyed it.
Bonding week probably, or more, I would say.
It's actually hard to believe that was April.
I know.
It only feels like yesterday. Yeah. But anyway, that just shows you how time.
God had a holiday. Now we're back to porridge.
So I'm just obviously advising members that an update on the committee's consideration of key issues today will be provided obviously over the coming weeks, and the committee may then wish to consider if there are any particular aspects that it wishes to focus on. Okay, we're into the last couple of sections now. 25 is correspondence. There's been a significant amount of correspondence received over the summer period, and at page 403 you'll see the correspondence memo. At page 561 you'll see item 25.28, which is a member of the public raising concerns regarding nighttime transport in Belfast. I know this is a concern of a lot of us as well as public reps. So I'm seeking agreement to forward the correspondence to the department for a response to the issues raised with regard to the availability and costs of taxis or public transport at night time in Belfast. Details of any engagement with the Department for Economy on the impact of the nighttime economy, and what steps can be taken by the department to improve the situation. Are members content with that, or does anybody want to add anything in relation to that?
Is that the wider point, or which one was that, sorry?
So that is page 561, and it's item 25.28, and that's an item of correspondence that's raising concerns about the nighttime transport in Belfast. You happy with the, yeah? Okay, thank you. At page 565 you'll see item 25.30, and again this is a member of the public regarding water supply at Torhead. Just seeking agreement to advise committee scrutiny, policy development and consultation role on that individual cases. Whilst we sympathise with this man in relation to his case, obviously it is for constituency MLAs to deal with this unless anybody differs from that opinion.
Sure, which page numbers?
So this is page 565.
Okay.
And it's item 25.30, and it's from a member of the public regarding water supply at Torhead. Essentially it's about, connection to supply. So members, the proposal is really that the correspondence we go back in the vein of, it is a constituency MLAs that will need to deal with it and take it up with NI Water. Whilst I sympathise, I think from a committee perspective it's very difficult for us to take on individual constituency cases, unfortunately. So are members content with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm asking members if you've any comments to make about any other particular item of correspondence. Yep,
Yes,
Stephen.
Chair, there's just one there, page 521. I think it's 25.24.
521.
Page 521.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just from Marac Design. I was referenced in it. I met with them a number of weeks ago, and it was about obviously the ongoing issues of NI water capacity and so on. And I think it's proposed there to maybe an informal meeting.
Yeah.
I would like to propose that just to hear from the the sector themselves about the significant impact they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
If could that be arranged at some point potentially, or?
Sorry, I'm just going. Is that the informal meeting with myself and the deputy chair, or with the committee?
Well, if the committee's agreed, then we'll arrange it between yourself and the deputy chair, with any other member who's available can attend.
Okay.
I was actually going to say, just to build off that, Stephen, I was going to raise it during the Forward Work programme. I thought it was more appropriate there. But just on the back of the conversation we've just had there about Tor Head, I mean, I've had a number of complaints brought to me about Northern Ireland Water recently. I was mentioning this to Andy earlier on. I think it would be good if we got them in front of the committee again to raise the concerns that are being brought to us. I know that I asked to speak with Northern Ireland Water in July, and was the earliest date an urgent request, and the earliest date that was given to me was in September, late September. So I think it'd be really important that we get Northern Ireland Water in front of us to talk about the challenges facing them, because I'm conscious that we met Sarah and other officials in one of the earliest meetings that we've had. So I think it's important that we, in the sort of second year of the Assembly return, that we have that conversation with them to hear about what they're experiencing.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second. Can we just to keep it clean and tidy, can we take the proposal just in relation to the informal meeting first
On
in
that
relation
point,
to
on
this?
that point, Chair, I genuinely don't mind, but where do you stop? I mean, it's going to come. It's like I could pick out a number of firms and people in my own around my own area. The point is, I don't mind if you want to go down that route. The problem at some point is a major issue right across. There's 100 hours of constraint. So whether you do that one meeting and then look towards say NIW coming in and pick up, that will be a specific meeting. It's going to be very hard to manage that. You know what I mean? And I genuinely don't mind Stephen in the chair, but I could come in next week with somebody else and some other member. You know what I mean? And we just need to make a decision now. What's the best way to go forward and all that? To be honest with you, because it's happening right across the board.
Yeah. Just on this, from speaking to that particular group, that they're representing people right across the country.
Oh no, 100%. If it's a conglomerate of people that covers
an NI-wide issue, it's not a specific.
It's NIW. It is an NIW right across the board. I mean,
but it's not specific to one particular area that they're concerned about. It is Northern Ireland wide. Very much.
Is this company marked as any of the architects technically?
They're consultants, I believe.
But then there has to be an overarching body of consultants that'll feed in.
Yeah, they would feed in right across the board.
The entire problem of all of them, because then
So there is a construction federation, which I think would be a good body to bring in relation to the committee as a whole. And I know that the construction federation have been in the media publicly recently, just talking about the issues, and they would be as such like an overarching body. Because I do take your point, Cathal. It is a case of we are going to be time constrained in relation to the business that we need to get done within the committee. And to be honest, we are aware of the problems and the issues that are ongoing. What we need is actually to move to a situation where we're actually getting the solutions, the solution mode in relation to it, and trying to figure out with the department where we actually go on this. And of course, there is a PAC report as well, which we will be potentially looking at as well in relation to
well, Chair, in this case, all I'm saying, and these people may represent a good number of groups, I don't know whether they do or not. My point is, if this gets out and then some other group who are not affiliated comes to us, then we're caught meeting that group, or once you start the process. So just need to have a wee bit of think what way we want to go forward. I have no objection to anybody meeting or whatever member wants to go. But this is right across the board, and we just need to send the right message out. That's all I'm saying.
No, and I take that point. Maybe is it a suggestion that we maybe get a written briefing that we can get from this particular company. If they want to provide us with that in terms of the specific issues that they have, and then maybe it's a case of we include the Construction Federation, who are an overarching body, to come in relation to it. Peter,
can I clarify what we're discussing here? I suppose. I mean, is it? My understanding was that it was an informal conversation with yourself. I think maybe the vice chair as well, and Northern Ireland Water. My proposal kind of widened that out and said, can we get them in here to meet with us as a committee?
I think Cahill's point was basically saying
on this issue here,
on this issue here specifically, which is about this particular company, is that next week we could have multiple companies, requesting a meeting with myself and the deputy chair. Now,
so the proposal is this company.
Yes.
Meeting with the chair. Okay.
Hello.
My understanding was Northern Ireland Water. So okay, mine is separate from yours.
Yes, yours is completely separate. That's why I wanted to take it. Sorry, Peter. That's why I wanted to take it separate.
I agree with Cahill's point then.
That's why I wanted to take your point separate to this. Yeah. So, I am not. I'm not averse to meeting with people or engaging with people. But we also, the chair, I hope the deputy chair doesn't mind me speaking on his behalf, but we also have to manage our own
gates will open up
doubts as well. So, as I say, it is one individual company, but these issues are replicated. So I think it would be important maybe that as a wider body, we get the Construction Federation industry in. And they are the spokespeople for the likes of these businesses and this group in this industry, if you're content with that approach. Yeah. And then maybe if we could ask, going back, as I say, we're not averse to engaging with them and we're not averse to hearing about their issues, so maybe it might be worthwhile just getting a written submission from them, so that we also have that when we're looking at this issue with the Construction Federation. Does that sound reasonable?
Reasonable, and then we can follow on with the next point. That
Chair, you're going to write to the Construction Federation and Royal Society of Ulster Architects to get an understanding of the issue you have with water drainage capacity before we meet NI Water to cover it and a few other things.
Yeah. That's a reason.
To get a bit of an understanding.
I think we'd need to get that information first before we have that meeting with NI Water, because then again it's about making best use of our time. With 3 hours every week, and then obviously within that with ministerial questions, etc. So it's about making the best use of our time when we're in this room. So if we get that information first, we can then understand the points. I think over the summer we've become quite well versed, even with speaking with our own companies that are within our own local constituencies, of what the issues are that are facing them. And certainly when Sarah Venning was in front of the committee, it was quite shocking in terms of our first evidence session what was happening there. So we'll get that information first, and then we'll look at Northern Ireland Water coming in again to the committee, just to get a further update. That also might be useful in the context of the utility regulators report, as well, because that hasn't been
pinged.
It's not fully out there, so it might be useful even to get all of that information and then the utility regulators report as well, and coincide that with getting Northern Ireland Water in. Does that sound like a plan?
Was the report, wasn't it, September, October?
Yeah. But I think I was looking up over the summertime. I think it says on the website autumn. Yeah. So I think there's a slide there. But like I think that might be a way of doing that if members are content.
And that's no offence to Stephen and the group that met him to you.
No, you're all right.
No.
Just on that specific, they'll be written back to then. Is that correct, Kathy?
Yes.
For the written, that's fair enough.
That's them for written.
We're gonna, Stephen, we're gonna go back to them and ask for a written evidence to come back to us. So, so hopefully everybody has a chance to get their information to us in that respect. Okay, happy and content to move on then. So again, just asking members if they've any other comments that they wish to make about any other particular item of correspondence. No. Okay.
Just on the Community Transport Association, we had met them there a few weeks ago, and obviously they weren't happy with the budget and their position. How do we get an understanding from them or TransLink to see how efficient they are, or TransLink is based on passenger numbers, etc., etc.? You know, and I appreciate they're doing two different things, but it's to get an understanding how we could support that organisation better, because they are getting squeezed, and I fear that organisation, some of them are not going to be fit to survive.
So I agree. The Minister is coming up. The Minister, I noted, had met with Community Transport Association, and I think Shop Mobility as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the Minister's response indicates that in the paper. It might be interesting to see what came out of those discussions with the Minister as well. Do you want to?
When's the Minister due? In October, isn't it?
2 weeks.
Yeah, well then that is October, isn't it?
25th of September.
More or less, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So wait till then.
Are you content with that, or
yeah?
Well, sorry, the action that's suggested is to request a copy of the Minister's written response to CTA, and also an update on the outcome of the meeting, so we can do that anyway.
And have that prior.
Yeah.
That'll do the job, yeah.
Happy with that?
Super, thanks.
Okay. So I'm just seeking agreement that members are content to note the correspondence in the table pack and the other items of correspondence and the remaining suggested actions as contained in the correspondence memo in the meeting pack. Everyone content?
Content.
Okay. Item 26 is the draft forward work programme, and you will see a copy of that at page 621. Advise members that an outline draft forward work programme has been developed by the committee staff for the first few weeks in September. Members may wish to note, obviously, as we've discussed today, that the Minister will be given evidence on the 25th of September and to provide an update on developments following his earlier evidence session in the year. And I'm informing members as well that John Sturrock KC will be delivering effective questioning techniques to Assembly committees in September-October as part of the Parliamentary Excellence Programme. This is being scheduled for the 2nd of October for this committee instead of the normal weekly meeting, and if necessary a short formal meeting can be held that day if there are any urgent matters that must be dealt with. So obviously members, that's not a chance to slip off into the sunset. That is a very important session, and it's important for us because, as I've reiterated in this committee today, we have to get the most out of the 3-hour session that we have each week. So especially when we're going to be looking at bills and we're going to be scrutinising them going forward, we need to have effective questioning in the Assembly to be able to do our jobs. And as it says there is a possibility that we may need to have a short committee meeting that day if there are any urgent matters. So that's why we need to ensure that we do have attendance at that session. So that's not me teaching you how to suck eggs. I'm just obviously setting out the importance of it. So I'm seeking agreement to proceed with the evidence sessions as set out in the draft forward work programme and reflect any decisions taken today. Content. Okay, item 27 is any other business. So I'm asking members if there's any other items of business that they wish to raise at this moment in time. All content? Okay. Thank you everybody for coming today, and the date, time and location of the next meeting is 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 18th of September 2024 in room 29 Parliament Buildings. Thank you everyone.
Thanks Chair. Thanks everyone.
Now adjourn the meeting.
Committee Room 29. Sound.